back. We have another awesome, incredible story. I actually love doing these kinds of things because Melissa and we met through a mutual friend, Drew. He was on the podcast and he actually shared his journey and some of the things that he was going through. And so I know that we're friends mutually through Drew. But I'm excited to hear about this because now we're going to talk about some of the stuff that happens behind the scenes, kind of the in-depth. I love this part of the conversation. So Melissa, welcome. Thank you for sharing the time with us. We shared a whole nother thing, and I'm really excited to hear this part of it. So this is going to be cool.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So, all right, we start every show with this aspect. We just meet in an elevator. You got 30 seconds. Who are you? Who is Melissa?
Melissa, I think, is a person that can get things done. I am one of those people that can guide others, I think, to creative, innovative solutions. I do that through my storytelling, through being an author, being a speaker, and connecting people behind the scenes as well. So if you have a creative project that needs to be done, I think we can work together.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's always interesting to hear how people kind of start to define and describe who they are because this journey that we take, the story that we've been writing, we've got twists, we've got turns, we've got bends in the road. So starting out with this whole process of the narrative and the crafting the narrative, what were some of the beliefs and the form, the things that you said, this is how life is going to be? And typically, we say this every time, but it could have been something that was exemplified, something that somebody told you, or something that you just were led to believe that this is the way I was going to live my life. How did that start for you?
Well, I'm from a very small town in the Midwest. We have one traffic light. I always say, if you blink, you miss it. We have definitely more soybeans than people. So, a very small town. I grew up in an agricultural community. There wasn't a lot of glitter and sparkle. Obviously it was like hard work. You do things there with your family. You're there all the time. You're working at the farm and all kinds of things. So, growing up for me, I definitely had the plan, right? The idea, the concept that yes, I would go to college. And I was going to be, when I grew up, I was either going to be a model or a lawyer, and I would get married and have a husband and probably have kids, like the usual shebang. And fast forward to, where we are now. Obviously, I'm very sparkly. I live in our nation's capital, which is not a agricultural area in any shape or form.
Right.
I am a solo gal out here having adventures in the city. My sisters are all married. They have kids. They still live in the Midwest. So I somehow became this oddball something, whatever, that I changed that path and just sort of started dancing or, beating my own drum, if you will.
Yeah, it was almost like a divergent, right? I mean, like that was the one way. So, I mean, typical Midwest. And I love how you describe that because that is typical Midwest. You think that you're going to go to college, you're going to have a job, you're going to have a family, you're going to have kids, you're going to have all of that stuff. So, was that something that was modeled for you? Was it something that was ingrained? Was it something like an expectation that was set on you? Like, how did that all come about?
I don't know that we had like I know some families they definitely have like the talks with the daughters or whatever, like you will be married and all that, find the husband, and there's like a lot of peer pressure sort of on that. I don't know that I had that, but my grandparents were high school sweethearts. And so I had always looked at them as like the example, now granted, I knew after I graduated high school and I wasn't married like that, I wouldn't have the high school sweetheart part, but I wanted the idea of the person that I do want to be with. I wanted it to be like them because somehow they were, high school sweetheart. They were married till they each passed away from passed away from each other. They pretty much were together all the time, aside from the years. My grandfather was a teacher for the vocational school for many years, and then he transitioned into having his own business. And so during that time, she was answering the phone for the customers. She would ride in the truck with them to go take his loads because he would haul to agricultural facilities for, stables and things. They would always be together. And I mean, I could hardly ever think of a coarse word they would say to each other. Like they might sometimes get into a little something and he would just look at her and be like, be quiet or something. And like that would be the end. Like it would it was like they didn't have drama. It was really a good example. And I think what got ingrained to me is that I'm not going to settle. I want to be with that person for a long time. And my parents were divorced, but each of the people they married subsequent, they've been married since. So, maybe they didn't get it right the first time, but they were okay the second time. But, I just really felt in my heart, I don't want to be going in thinking that I could change it. I wanted it to be like that forever thing. And so I think that sort of crafted, how I perceive like relationships and how I evaluate different things, and certainly, as you get older, you start to develop more things about like what's going to work for me personality wise, and you learn more about yourself. So, through that evolution process, I think that imprint's always been there that I'm just going to be a one and done, or I'll just keep, waiting because I'm not going to settle kind of, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a core belief there that you have developed of a high standard for yourself of what you're expecting, and that comes across very clearly as the example. And if you may, I'll ask this question because you mentioned this. The grandparent relationship was solid all the way through. And then you mentioned just briefly that your parents were divorced and then they married afterwards. But what kind of impact did that have on that belief of everybody is going to be together for the rest of their life? And it seemed like that was the belief that had been formed by your grandparents, and then all of a sudden something's breaking that, and you're like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah, I think, there definitely were moments throughout my life where there were moments in time that you go from that naive, like this is what it's going to be to like a realist,
Mm.
like, okay, the reality is life is this. And I think I did realize that, yeah, the reality is that probably not most people are like my grandparents, actually. Like they don't get the benefit of finding the one that actually is great for them. So it's kind of like, for me, it was like a good and bad thing because I kind of almost feel bad for people when they didn't have the right person, So it's sort of like, I guess, it just made me think like, obviously there's reality, so not everybody has this, but maybe you can if you have a good system of, dating or, like you just start to think about different things, right? Of what makes them having a good relationship. Are they good communicators? Do they, have these things in common? How do they navigate the few disagreements, at least that we heard? Of course, you don't hear everything, but you hear in a house you hear some stuff when you're there all the time. When you try to be, I was trying to be out there all the time, so you hear things. But I think with my parents, I just realized that probably not every person is a fit for the person they thought they were going to be a fit for. And honestly, it's probably better in some situations to learn and find that out sooner than later, so that you can separate and go your separate ways and you don't get into that cycle where unfortunately a lot of people find themselves where they do stay in it for the kids, and I think that's a hard decision to have to navigate because you need that stability. But then it's like later if the kids feel that they know their parents don't like each other, then what does that do? So there's a lot of things I think with parents that they sadly have to navigate for the benefit of us kids. And, they're trying to do their best. So, I can't fault them for saying, hey, we're not a good fit. So that's where I think for me, that's where I'm always like, okay, things need to be a good fit. And I don't want to force the puzzle piece and I'm not in a rush. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. Can I twist this because we talk to a lot of people that are the child of a divorced parent, and they've had situations. So if you don't mind, if I can just kind of go on a little rabbit hole here, because there's a lot of people that I talk to, and a lot of people that listen that their parents have split. And a lot of the struggle that I know that people deal with, and I want your opinion and your thoughts and your experience on this. And a lot of the struggle that the kids have is that it was my fault that my parents are split. And I should have been better. I should have done something. I should have. And we know that that's not true as adults, but in our belief aspect, we can't necessarily process that. So how did that impact you, or did it impact you, or did your parents share with you, because maybe you had to heal through something, or your parents shared with you, say, look, this is not you, it's not like, how did that all come about, and how, if somebody is thinking that way, how can they heal from that?
Well, yeah, I think that's definitely as a child sitting in that position, that's definitely the first thing I think that pops into your head is, what did I do to make this happen? Because I think from when you get back into your kid perspective, right? We haven't seen like bad stuff most of the time. I won't say everyone, right? Most of the time, we're kind of more sheltered from, like I say, those closed door discussions, that happen when the kids are fast asleep, when that grown up stuff happens. So I think that it's definitely natural for most children to have that belief. And I think when it happened to me, yeah, I was kind of questioning that too. Like, what was it? And I'm a Virgo, so we have perfectionist tendencies, right? Anyway, and we can take blame, and we can be I think I'm an empathetic type of person anyway. So, I took empathy, probably pretty quickly to realize that it probably wasn't my fault. Like, as a kid, really, how can it kind of be your fault? You're a kid, like you're not intentionally doing things, versus an adult, which can push each other's buttons and be passive aggressive, and do all this negative stuff that, when we love each other and then we don't, we like can hurt that person like more than anyone else, right? So that fine line, as they say, between love to hate, it's definitely real for people. And so I think in that situation, it's good that there are resources for kids in those situations to be able to talk it out, whether it is maybe a grandparent that can take the kids. Like, we had our grandparents as a buffer, thank goodness. So, and they had the farm. So we were always out and running amok and just being free and not in the environment, which I think is a big help, for kids going through a situation, because there could be that separation period, but they're still living in the same house while they're figuring it out. That, and then when the divorce happens, sometimes they don't always separate from the home and they're still together. So there's a lot of, dynamics. So I think having a buffer and being able to have that other entity, whether it is professional, paid therapist, or, someone like that for the children, or just that a different adult that doesn't, they can talk about it with the children, or they can just not talk about it. And I think that's also important. Like, how does each child want to respond in this situation? Because for me, it's sometimes I need to not talk to anyone while I get my own thoughts in order and sort of figure some stuff out. And then I feel like once I can do that, I can talk to other people. But I think you have to let people feel comfortable, whether that's talking, equine therapy, actual therapy, doing art, taking them away,
Yeah.
and realizing that it's okay to feel these things as you walk through it, type of
it's
thing.
it's absolutely amazing to me to see the impact of what someone has on a life that is so young. And like you just said, that buffer, it sounds like that was that healing process for you that allowed you to really quickly get through the mindset, the processing, and all of those pieces. So I think that's really incredible, and especially as we look at parents, because it happens, like you said, it happens, and that's really great advice to really look and see about having that buffer in a child's life. So what was the, as we kind of transition to this whole aspect, and there's a lot of things it sounds like that you were healing through and working through, but what was it that really changed your mindset from, I'm going to grow up, go to college, I'm going to have a family, I'm going to have kids. I'm like, what was there a situation or an expression? Was there somebody that kind of spoke into your life, or what was that shift like for you?
I think it was one of those things. It's more like a gradual shift that kind of happened. Like, I did go to college. I was in several long-term relationships that ended up, we parted as friends, but it just, that didn't happen. And so I think because I didn't rush when I was like in my 20s, which most of the people where I grew up did. Like most of them now at this point, when I see them on Facebook, they have kids that are in college now. And in my mind, I'm like, there's no way I could have a kid in college. Like, oh my God. So I think it started to shift that for me, it was like, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to have experiences. I'm going to get my education. I'm going to jump out into the career world and do different jobs that I've had along the way leading through to where I am today. And if that, down the aisle stuff happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm okay with that too. So I think where my mind shifts, that's kind of different than a lot of people, given even that I saw this long-term relationship as my guiding light, is that like the reality is that we are in different times of dating, courting, relationship evolution, and how people think about it and things like that. So if you don't evolve with the times to know that there's some different things that are going on that wasn't happening 70 years ago, then you're like, that doesn't make sense. So for me, I've always just been like young, adopting this mindset from a young age that you either like me or you don't, or this is either going to work out or it's going to evolve to something else, right? So it's more for me about like the evolution and what's natural and what is going to be the best fit. So yeah, I worked a lot. When I was in college, I worked full time and went to school full time. So even though I had the college experience, I wasn't out there like doing a lot of like dating and partying, and a lot of stuff. So for me in my life, it's kind of, it flipped a little bit somewhat. Like in my 20s, I was like, really, I had to take care of everything myself pretty early on and do a lot of these things. And then when I moved to the city in my early 30s, around my 30s to DC from the Midwest, then I got to experience some of like the unsheltered, like living an urban experience and museums, right? Ride the train, there's the museum. I don't need a car. Like I had this total, liberation from culture, from where I started. And I think that opened me up to like, you don't have to rush, like just let it evolve naturally. I think that's where I came from versus like it has to be in your 20s, or if you're not married by your 30s, you're going to be sad, or, if you have more than one cat, you're going to be a cat lady for life or whatever. So
where did that drive or that independence, and it's in a good way, independence, how did that get started? Where did that come from? Because so many people, and I share this because I've talked with individuals, so many people feel that they have to live that life within that small town and they don't experience that, I'll call it a greater worldview of there are other options, there's other opportunities. And not to say that that's wrong. It's just that there's some people that look at that and they say, okay, I feel that drive for independence. I feel that drive for a little bit broader life experience. Do you know where that came? Was it just something that was always there? But then how did it flesh out into your life?
I would say it probably was somewhat planted in the sense that yes, I grew up in the Midwest. I'm very comfortable being around dirt, and like I said, my grandparents had a farm, so I'm very agricultural and small town at heart. But I also was the person when, grandpa would be like, hey, I'm taking everyone, let's go to Ponderosa, to eat. And my grandma would kind of, she'd put herself with her little outfit on, and then she'd have to tell him, hey, put on clean Levi's and a white, Hanes t-shirt and at least a shirt over it, because, country and cowboy. So I always thought to put myself together for some, like I had always this little bit more, I'd say more glam, not glam because we weren't allowed to wear makeup glam. I wasn't sparkle like I am now, but more of this, like I want to put myself together. And then I would say there was other seeds planted because when we would go out to her house, when we would go to the grocery store, it was like high living. So we get, biscuits and gravy on the weekend she'd make from scratch, and we could get ice cream before bed. We'd have chocolate milk, whatever we wanted, like sky's the limit. So I would always try to ask to sneak in to the shopping cart um, like a Vogue or an Elle magazine or a Bazaar, Harper's Bazaar, when I was a kid, and back then they used to be super fat, not like a pamphlet that they kind of are now. Sorry, no shade. But the times have changed with the cost ratio, whatever, and online. But they used to be super fat, like 800-page Vogue magazines, right? And of course they didn't know inside that sometimes the ads would maybe have like nude, like an illusion of like a nude body or whatever from these things. And that's not why I wanted it. But if they would have known, I would have never been allowed to buy it. But for me, it was like those magazines were like kind of became my secret treasures, because when I would flip through these magazines, it was like I could feel the confidence of these people like off the pages, and I look at these crazy outfits and this fashion and the runways and all the stuff and the articles and be like, wow, they're on these cool photo shoots and these designers doing interesting things, and there's color, right? It's not a Levi's t-shirt and a cowboy boot.
Hanes white t-shirt.
So that was like, that always spoke to me. And I think, most of my family really just fit more of, like they're fine to, go to college and be the mom and do all that stuff. So their personality, I think, still stayed more of like, it's okay, I'll have my experiences, but I still want to have that experience. And mine was more like, now I'm just flexible to say, again, I don't want to be a person that says I'm not a whole person because I didn't have a husband or I didn't have 5 kids, or, what if people can't have them? What if they're, what? So, for me, it's like, it's even though I came from a small town, I think I definitely have this very non-judgmental kind of essence, and I put that out as well for others, because I'm like, hey, I don't disrespect you for having a family and having kids and being not right. Glittery, so please don't please don't do that to me. So that's sort of how
if I were to put it into our world's terms now, it would almost be that your grandmother showed you what it meant to have a professional look and have a it just there was a certain value there that she shared with you, and it sounds like it was communicated through actions of the way that she talked to other individuals and stuff, and it was just it is okay to have a professional. You don't have to be dirty, or you don't have to like look at that Midwest of what everybody else is doing. It's like you can do that and it's okay. So and that's incredible, again, how one person can influence your life and how they can share a little bit, and it's just absolutely amazing. So what do you do now to write your legacy, to write your narrative? What is it that you're doing to create and craft that story of who you are?
Well, I think one of the things that I've done that sort of builds on the legacy of this, and I'll say as well, my grandmother definitely was, even though they were attached at the hip, she was very independent. So if she didn't like something, she's gonna speak her mind. So I think for sure I got that gene. One time I know she threw some rocks at my uncle down the lane because he kind of smarted off to her, so I could definitely, I've seen myself doing some things. So I try to, though, be that kind of sassy. But I would say currently my legacy is, I would say, I'm a sassy entrepreneur that is an author and a speaker. And really, I found that this idea of writing and helping others launch their book has happened as a result of doing. And I think that's something that has always been ingrained with my roots and being in a small town. And, you just rely on yourself, your neighbors, your friends and things. And maybe you don't have all the money in the bank to get stuff done, but you do have resources, even if it's free or even if it's a shoestring budget. So I think part of my legacy is also I've been able to, through my determination, through my willingness to try things, and just keep trying and chugging along and just making strides to meet people, be a good person, be memorable. That has led me to now being able to be a best-selling author. I've won an award with my books. I won a speaking award, and now I'm into speaking at college and universities to help the next generation be resilient, be able to feel that they can belong in a cyber world, feel that they can win others over, because it's all about networking, communicating, building relationships and things. And I think if I can share those type of things that I was brought up with about, it's really is like paying it forward in the sense of, what do I have that I'm capable of that's sort of my expertise, and then how can I share that with you so that you can build your brand or business better, faster, stronger, quicker, kind of like the bionic man, right? You want to have that shortcut. So I think where I'm at now is this idea of helping other people make an impact with their words through their book, and how that book then can leverage their opportunities to have, high ticket masterminds, or create membership models, or go on a speaking tour, and those type of things. Because I think every person really, and certainly entrepreneurs, which many of us are, we all have a story that we can tell. We all have expertise that's unique to us. And certainly other people are impacted by reading about how people did things. Because if we can say, oh, if they did it, maybe I can too, that's what really makes me happy, because I feel like I've been a country mouse to a city mouse, and I've been able to swim okay up here with the sharks in our nation's capital so far. So if I can really do that, really anyone can. And maybe, if we work together or network together, or we get in the same room together, then, we could somehow help level up each other. And I'm really about helping other people level up where they can be and shine bright as well.
So let's dive just a hair deeper into this, because I love that whole big picture and overview, and I know that that's your passion, and we've talked before, and the vision of being able to impact and help others is there. But what do you do? What are your habits? What are your routines in order to maintain that energy to be able to help other people, in order to be able to reach out and collaborate, to be able to show up as great as you show up? What do you do on a regular basis to be able to do that?
So I think probably like most people, COVID was like that big slap in the face. Like, you are not in control of this planet, and even if you think you are, sorry. And so I started out probably like a lot of people, looking at the phone and just being so freaked out. Like, I mean, in this current reality, this is what's happening. Like, the world is shutting down. Like, it was just mind melting for me. And I felt myself going that doom direction. And I said, oh no, you better snap out of it really fast. So I really decided, okay, you can take this time to do the binging and the drinking and the this and the this and the whatever, or you can get real. So it was sort of like, let's get real about some stuff. And so my get real was all about the formation of those good habits again. Because previous to that, I had been doing some different entrepreneur work. Plus, I had done some like nightlife work in a local wine bar, so it was like a different type of schedule, right? So I never had a 9 to 5 type thing. So COVID allowed me to kind of create a 9 to 5 life for myself and break like insomnia, which I had for many years, and get on like a normal, what I call a normal real world schedule. So I dove into all the webinars I can find, how to build brands, how to make courses, how to do subscriptions, all these different things. And it was all under the guise of, how can I better myself? And that basically allowed me to have that freedom to say, yeah, I'm going to create these new habits, because for sure I didn't want COVID. So I said, well, I have to get healthy. So I decided I definitely have to work out. So that was the first thing, and I started out small, and do like 5 or 10 minutes, and then get up to like 30 minutes, and then whatever. So I adopted like a daily workout. And then I found a really good book that led me to an app along with it, that I do a daily meditation. And then I do daily reading for like 15 or 20 minutes, and then write my intentions and my journaling. And then I have a journal that's all about, it's a combo, like self-care / planner journal. So it actually has in there, are you drinking your water? What are your self-care goals? Did you exercise today? What's your gratitude? So I do great, daily gratitude. And I think all those things have really started to set me up, and it transitioned me from being insomnia and not being able to kind of feel like I was like a regular, productive individual, because I had more of a different schedule. So it set me up on, now I can get up early and I get all those things done, and have quiet time on my computer, and I can get most of my to-do list done before most people are getting to their office now. And without a commute half the week, I work satellite half and home half, I can just power through things. So that allowed me to create the set schedule for myself. And I built in, like, I'm going to eat. I have lunch breaks. I'm going to stop at a certain time each day. And I only work past those certain hours that I give myself if I'm going for like a launch. So usually if I'm in launch mode or something intense like that, it's about a 3-month window of commitment. That there might be times where obviously I have more pedal to the metal and I'm doing like longer hours on computer and that type of stuff. But for the most part, I try to set it up like that. And then I know where my energy fluctuates and flows. So I know that I'm better to get creative things done on these days during this type of environment and whatever. And then I can set up admin days, and then I set up at meeting days. So that way I know with my brain power, I'm using it to its most capable functions, so that I'm not like zigzagging all week like a lot of people do, because they're kind of stuck with like a corporate job, or they have a lot of stuff they have to juggle with certain things like that, and they don't have a choice about it. But if you do, I found when you structure it like in these blocks, if you will, where you can have like that, get in those flow states, then those outcomes can happen faster, and then you can knock those tasks out in blocks and clumps of things at a time.
So here's the $1 million question. If you didn't do all of those things, that discipline, do you think you would have as deep of an impact on those that you touch?
Probably not, because I would probably feel off, probably grumpy, a little like internally grumpy. I would never externally, unless you're my family and I know you, right? Like to others, I cannot be I won't be grumpy to them, but internally, or like in my own environment, I'll feel my fuse getting a little shorter, or that patience window running out, of just little, oh, it's the siren going by 100 times out the window. Well, they go by 100 times all the time. Now today you're annoyed. That's kind of a sign, to be like, okay, take that moment, or whatever that exercise is, or are you making sure you're still doing those things? Because that the discipline of the habits make you disciplined in other areas of your life. And I learned this through like one of my online workout people, doing an online workout. They were saying, yeah, how you do one thing in life is how you do everything in life. And I was like, oh yeah, that is probably true, right? Like, let's think about that. Like, if you're not very organized, you don't make your bed in the morning, you don't maybe iron your clothes, you just like wearing the workout pants and the UGG boots every day and just being comfortable. And, like, what other areas are you comfortable? When you are at your job, are you just comfortably getting by? Or are you diligent and doing impeccable work? Are you distraction free or not? So it kind of makes my mind go in these different directions.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. And it's amazing how much discipline plays into your effectiveness and your impact that you have. And one more question before we kind of conclude this thing. How long did it take you to discover this about yourself? The analytics side, the self-discovery, the realization that, because you mentioned something, I can see when I feel when I get a short fuse, or when something's irritating me, I know that I'm not on point. How long did it take you to discover and work through, and then to be able to put a plan to overcome that?
I would say, because I am this Virgo at heart, once I decide I'm going to do something that has a result tied to it, or an outcome that I want from it, that's sort of like a done deal for me as far as the discipline and making it stick. And so, like, one of the ways that really is effective for me personally, and I think that's my nature as the analytical Virgo type person and being slightly competitive, I have like a Fitbit with my meditation app. It has everything is now have a tracker opportunity with it. So for me, once I got the first check mark for the consistency, I don't want to break the streak. So even if it means that I only do a workout for 5 minutes or 10 instead of a 35 or 40, I'm still going to do it because I'm not going to miss a check mark after 1,300 days now. I don't know what my meditation app said today, like over 13 or 1,400 days have that been going, right? So, and when I was in college, the goal was to graduate with honors, no matter if I had to work if I had to work Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, open to close at Brooks Brothers to do it, so I could have classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I think like for me, it's like once I commit to that and it's a real commitment, right? That's the other thing with people, not like, I'll commit or I'll do it for a Facebook challenge or because it's cool or I want to show people I'm doing it for the gram. None of that. It's like the real reason you're doing it. For me, once I decide and that's the thing I want to do, then nothing will hold me back and I'll just keep going for it. And certainly if it's something that's trackable, that really keeps me going because now I'm like, I can't miss the check mark. And I broke the streak once and I was so mad. And the only reason I broke a meditation streak was because my apartment had just flooded, and whatever. But even still, with the reminder, I forgot. I should at least, because here's the thing, you can even just do 1 minute. So, and you can keep going if you're into it. So I started giving myself the breaks of just doing that, just getting it started. Because then you at least have that discipline to start and you'll probably go longer with the thing. So that's kind of how I frame it up.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. And I love the way that you framed that because those check marks are like, hey, it's a consistent and the commitment, the desire for commitment. If you were to, and all of the things, we talked about some incredible things today, but if there was one thing that you felt, hey, I want somebody to walk away with this one thing, what would that one thing be?
I think one of the things that's really important is belief in yourself, confidence in yourself and your abilities, because that allows for that mental freedom. I think that we were talking about where you don't have to fit in people's boxes. You don't have to feel the need to fit into the mold and online and social media and all these things, right? They have this intoxicating effect to be perfect and manicured and you have to be like everyone else. And if it's not, like you're a disaster, life is horrible. But that's not real. Like you're real. Be authentic. Being authentic and confident makes you memorable. And in my opinion, my humble country girl opinion is that being memorable is 90% of getting the job done. Because if you are memorable, people will take your call, reply to your email. They'll give you the opportunity to have a pitch meeting or invite you to their event or whatever, right? So you don't have to be memorable in a annoying, gross way, right? I hope I'm not annoyingly, I hope I'm not memorable in that way, but like I can tell people, oh, it's Melissa. We met at such and such. And I literally will say, oh, I have the short pixie here. Oh, boom. They know exactly who I am. For you, it's the play. It's the Lego guy, right? What's your thing? What's your little thing that can make you different? And that's where you don't want to be homogenous. You want to be the one going in the different direction of everyone else because those are the people that are thinking different. They're disrupting. They'll get things done. Those are the people that can take action. And I think so embracing that true self, being bold, being unapologetic, being yourself, and just pushing the pedal to the metal is where you should go because you'll never know unless you just keep trying and just doing different stuff. You evolve along the way. You don't have to crash and burn. You just evolve. So.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. So how can they get in touch with you? Because you said some really good things. I've got goosebumps a couple of times through our conversations. Exciting stuff. But how can people get in contact with you, especially if they're resonating with what you're talking about?
Sure. So I'm Melissa Van Os on LinkedIn. I'm pretty much, I think, the only one there. And you'll know it's me because of the short red hair. Bling bling to your
pixie haircut.
It's the pixie hair. That's me. And also on Instagram and social media, I'm at author because I write books. Author Melissa Van Os. So I try to keep it simple.
That's awesome, and we'll get that in the notes for everybody that if they're listening through the podcast or driving or however else you're doing that, and you want to come back and check it, it'll definitely be in the notes. That way you can connect with Melissa. And again, I highly recommend you connect. At the very very least, go through the Instagram, or for me, it's LinkedIn. I love being able to connect with people on LinkedIn. So make sure you do that. And again, another incredible story. And as we conclude, I mean, we talk about this all the time, but I do want to say this: if something touched you, if something resonated with you, or something impacted, whether you reach out to me or you reach out to Melissa, and that's why people are on our podcast, because we know that their hearts are really truly to impact individuals. So reach out, let us know that something made a difference in your life, or you made some kind of a change, or something that left an impact. Reach out and let us know, because we want to hear from you. Other than that, again, thank you, Melissa. Appreciate you being on here. It's been truly an incredible story. I love the Midwest into the the country mouse thing into the city mouse. That's really incredible. I love that story. So, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's been a
Yeah.
great
So,
time.
those that are listening, again, keep writing, keep crafting your story. That is your narrative.
Yes.
Because every story matters. Every story leaves an impact. So never stop leaving your legacy and writing your story.